Typography, they say, can be as sophisticated as a fine wine. In this project, we're going to start here with this simple bottle. We're going to improve the tonal qualities of this bottle with something called shadow highlight, so it looks like this. Then we're going to take a normal, everyday setting of this Bickham script typeface, one of Adobe's open typefaces, and we're going to enhance it with swash, ligatures, and special characters to look like this. Let's get this project started. And of course, it starts here with our standard everyday photograph of this bottle. As you cast your eyes over here to the Layers palette, you notice that I'm holding down the Shift key and I'm selecting two layers. I can now select multiple layers and I'm dragging them here into the trash because I want to start from the beginning. Now, the beginning will start with that use of shadow highlight to improve the quality of this image. You may not have thought about using shadow highlight to improve this. Let's zoom out just a bit so we can see more of this bottle. Selecting my zoom tool, holding down my Option or Alt key until I see the minus sign appear inside of the zoom tool. I'm going to click once and click twice. That looks great. Then, going up here to my image menu, down to Adjustments and over to Shadow Highlight. I like using Shadow Highlight because I can control both the shadows and highlights separately. I do not want to alter my shadows in this case, so I'm setting my amount to 0. However, I do want to adjust the highlights. Watch as I move the highlight slider over to the right. I'm increasing the contrast and density of the tones in the highlights. I can also adjust the tonal width, determining the number of shades that I am affecting with the amount. And then finally, with radius, I adjust this. And of course, you know the Russell Brown rule: when adjusting the radius, you move it till it looks good, then you stop. Finally, down here to Adjustments, in this particular case, I wanted to pull some of the blue out of the highlight area here. If I move the color correction to the left, I can thus control the amount of saturation in the highlights. And then finally, my contrast. Let's adjust this until the highlights flatten out a little because I'm preparing this for the text, so I can clearly see the text on top of this bottle. So here's some great controls found in Shadow Highlight to finesse an image that you might not have thought possible to finesse quickly and easily. Let's click OK. Let's move this story forward. Next is to turn on our text layer. So here we have a setting of Bickham script. Let's zoom in on this just a little bit more, up to 100%, as you see here. Then targeting our text layer here. And of course, I entered this text in earlier by selecting my text tool, clicking and dragging to define a text region. I'm now going to place my cursor into the text until you see it here flashing. You can see here in the options bar that it is Bickham script standard. Now, one of the great new features about an open typeface from Adobe is that it has special characters. You can address those here in Photoshop by clicking here in the options bar to toggle the character and paragraph palettes. Then, down here to the character palette, clicking on the flyout arrow, you can reveal the open type settings. Those settings that appear in the dark black text are the ones that are available to you. The ones that are grayed out are not available in this particular typeface. You'll notice that I can turn on swash and things like stylistic alternatives, and I can do that globally, or I can select a single letter form and change it that way. Now the problem is we don't have the ability to pre-visualize what the particular character will change into. I do not have a glyphs palette. Now let's think. What other application works together with Adobe Photoshop CS2 seamlessly, perfectly, with text? Why, that would be Adobe Illustrator CS2. So let's stop this project right here in Photoshop. Let's close this down. Let's target our text, and let's do a select all. Then over to my edit menu and copy that. Now let's switch over to Adobe Illustrator CS2 and let's see how we can control the text there more accurately. Here we are in Adobe Illustrator CS2. As you can see, I have drawn a black box earlier so that when I place my text from Adobe Photoshop CS2 into Illustrator, it will appear correctly because it's white text and I need it to appear on a black surface, just like the bottle. Now, selecting my text tool, I'm going to click once in this work area. Then from the edit menu, I'm going to paste. Our text will magically appear here. Now this is where the creativity begins. Let's move over here to the window menu and down to type and over to glyphs. Yes, this is a glyphs palette which exists here in Adobe Illustrator, but unfortunately not in Photoshop. But because you can work between the two programs so easily, it's like having the glyphs palette right in Photoshop. As you can see here, I'm displaying the entire library of Bickham's script. With my cursor placed here inside the text, check this out. I'm going to select the letter S here in Special. Then, moving over here to my glyphs palette, I'm selecting the word entire font, clicking and holding, and going to Alternates for current selection. Just like that. Now the display is a little bit small. I'm going to move down here to the lower right-hand corner of the glyphs palette and zoom this. Let's zoom this up to about there. Now, all I'm seeing are the alternates that are available for the current selected glyph within this set of text. All I have to do now is double-click on the glyph that I want to replace the current selection with. Watch this. Double-clicking on the swash has then placed it into position. I can go through and select other letters and continue the process. It's a great way to balance the text out and design with the text rather than just applying it globally across the image. Let's check this out. I'm going to select this H in thanks and look at the alternatives. Simply double-click on it to view the alternatives available to you. Let's continue through our project and add some more special characters. Let's put that one there. And let's try this one. And the ease of it is you just double-click and look at the variations within the image. Let's do another one down here with this L, and we're getting pretty close. Let's do one last thing. Let's do a special ligature here. I'm going back into my glyphs palette, and I'm going to go down to discretionary ligatures. As you can see here, here is a TH combination. I've selected the TH in my set of text. I double-click on it, and it's applied. I'm now going to select all of my text. Then once again, from the Edit menu, let's copy it. Let's now move back into Adobe Photoshop. So here we are back in Photoshop. Our text is still selected where we left it. All we have to do now is go to the Edit menu and paste. Unbelievable! We've brought over all of our text from Illustrator. Let's do one final adjustment to this. I'm going to set this text down by clicking here on this check mark in my options bar to commit my current text edits. Just like that. Now, moving over here to this fine tool called the Create Warped Text tool. I'm going to click on that. I'm now going to add a little bit of distortion to this so that it looks like the text is wrapping around the contours of this bottle. I'm going to select this arc lower because I want the topmost line to appear more straight, and then gradually as it moves down across the text, it'll distort. I'm going to click this, and you can see it distort like this. This is the default, a little bit too much. Let's pull back on this so it's just enough so it gives it a little bit of curvature so it appears more accurately around the edge of this bottle. Let's click OK. Let's double click on our hand tool to see the entire bottle. And there you have it, our setting of text. We started in Photoshop. We made our corrections in shadow highlight to the bottle itself, brought our text from Photoshop over to Adobe Illustrator, added the special glyphs, and then brought it back into Photoshop to finish our project. Give this technique a try the next time you're working with fine typography and Adobe Open Typefaces.